Sato is a risless, pathetic simp and high schooler who gets transported to another world where he's forced to be a hero and save the world. But before he can do that, he has to marry 5 princesses in the most awkward way possible. Deep in the heart of a dense forest, Sato's day takes an unexpected turn as he tries hunting for bugs skittering among trees. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light emanates, stunning him so intensely that he loses his balance and causes him to hug the ground. He decides to investigate the massive bright light, and to his astonishment, he sees an old man and a young girl emerging from a glowing portal. Sato's mind races with disbelief. At first, his tiny brain couldn't comprehend something so complex, and they thought they were aliens sent to Earth. The young girl asks for his name, and Sato, flustered and awkward since he is such an ugly simp who hasn't seen a beauty in his entire career of being an MC in the anime, manages to stutter out a response. The girl introduces herself as Hime, and the old grumpy man as her granddad. She then warns him, however, not to tell anyone of what he saw, and in exchange, she'll be his friend. At that point, the shameless loser immediately feels nature has brought them together and that somehow he has to dedicate his life to protecting her even though she's a total stranger. Fast forward 10 years, Hime makes breakfast for Sato, who feels like a top G having the hottest chick cook for him. As he eats, he can't help but notice the ring pendant hanging around her neck and resting just above her well-rounded melons. The dweeb realizes she isn't a kid anymore and is fully ripe for cultivation. He tells her she's changed a lot and no longer keeps a low profile, and Hime replies that she is a princess after all. He wonders what she means by this, as she has been saying this for years. She suddenly leans forward and the cultured simp thinks he's about to get lucky, but he's disappointed when she removes a grain of rice from his chin and tells him he eats like a donkey. She slowly puts the grain of rice in her mouth, immediately causing him to feel embarrassed as his magnum charges at full capacity. On their way to school, he can't stop thinking about the ring pendant and remembers her telling him it's important and will be given to the one she exchanges marital vows with. Hime notices him staring and teases him that even in his dreams, he won't get the ring. And at that point, he realizes that he's been delulu, thinking she wasn't interested in marrying him. Later at school, a psycho with a big head laments about how summer break starts and he still hasn't bagged any baddies to spend summer with because he's freaking ugly. He tells Sato how lucky he is to spend all his time with Hime, and just as he continues to lament, Sato gets a message from Hime asking him to accompany her to the summer festival, and immediately thinks it would be a date. That evening, he meets Hime, and they start walking through the festival together. Hime reminisces about how he used to protect her and calls him her hero, but now he's a zero. Later, as they watch the fireworks, Sato decides it's the perfect moment to confess his feelings, but before he can open up about it, he's interrupted by Firework-kun. She suddenly reveals that she wanted to tell him something for a while, and he wonders if she also feels the same way for him. She shockingly reveals that she's going to be moving. Later that night, Sato can't stop thinking about Hime leaving. He suddenly sees a bright light through the window, which is similar to what he saw 10 years ago. He immediately follows it and he finds Hime entering a portal, and he suddenly remembers. He begs her not to leave, but she explains she's not moving away, but going to another world to get married. Devastated, Sato decides to ditch his friends, family, and life all for a baddie, and follows her through a portal. Then he lands in the middle of a wedding ceremony, and as Hime is about to kiss Prince Mars, Sato screams her name like a jilted lover. Hime looks at him in wonder. At that instant, an abyss monster suddenly appears, and Sato realizes he's made a mistake and would have remained in his lame ex-world. Hime's grandfather tries to intervene but is slapped away like a useless fruit fly and dashed to the wall, causing him to say that they really need the Ring of Light. He urges Hime to give the Ring of Light to Mars, but she runs to Sato, kissing him and giving him the ring on an impulse amidst a powerful light. The old man is left in shock, but Prince Mars seems cool with this and immediately gives Sato a sword to fight. However, the dummy admires the beautifully crafted sword, thinking it's just a decoration. But as the monster charges at him, he realizes he wielded the blade for the sole reason of battle. As he wielded the sword to fight, it emanated a blinding light, and at that instant, he slashed the monster to the shock of everyone, including himself, before passing out. Sato wakes up the following day in a royal bed with Hime by his side. She explains they are now married in the eyes of her people. He's thrilled, thinking she loves him, but she clarifies he's just a third wheel and an afterthought. Later, the people demand to see the Ring King and hero. Sato, unsure of what to say to the large gathering, babbles like a baby, but somehow the fish-brained people understand him and cheer anyway. Later, as he bathes, Hime approaches him, apologizing for dragging him into her kingdom's mess. He assures her he's happy to protect her and stay by her side. In a perverted move, he decides to have a glance at her well-rounded cannons, but she reminds him that the wedding is just for show and he shouldn't take it seriously. At that moment, the castle bell rang. and Sato unknowingly leaps up, displaying his long sword in 4K, and Hime is stunned at how long his sword was. As they hurried to the castle to find the reason the bell rang, a knight told them that several monsters from the abyss were attacking the castle and begged him, as the Ring King, to protect them. Hime tells Sato that he's still a newbie and not yet ready for battle, but her granddad tells her no one gives a shit, and since he wears the ring, he must perform the duties of the Ring King. Upon hearing this, Sato boosts his confidence and welcomes a battle axe, which glows as he holds it, and he begins reciting a boring lecture about love and friendship, which makes Hime dash at him and stick her tongue down his throat. Sato saves a scared maiden from being isekai'd by slashing the ugly monster into halves with his axe, obliterating it with a swing. At that point, he felt he had a bit more confidence since he didn't pass out like last time. The old man tells him it was because of a kiss he shared with the princess, and the deeper the bond, the stronger he gets. But he still feels his worthless Bumstead won't last long and will meet his maker pretty soon. However, Sato tells him he heard the people call him Asparagus, but the old man reaffirms him that his name was Alabaster. Their conversation is cut short by a levitating demon. Sato notices this demon is different from the ones he fought before. Alabaster identifies it as a Knight of the Abyss King, a powerful monster capable of wielding magic, and suggests they scram once they start to lose. Sato charges at the demon, only to be blown back by a gust of wind, slamming him against the wall and breaking his axe. Afraid to meet their doom, Alabaster yells at Sato to move his Bumstead and the time to scram is now. As they run, the demon summons two-winged ferocious fiends that chase them. Alabaster decides to buy Sato some time, raising a stone wall like an earthbender to block the demon's path. However, they are soon pincered by the Knight of the Abyss. Just then, Mars lands dramatically, covering the Abyss Knight with a cloth and setting it ablaze. He instructs them to get into a carriage and flee the castle. Sato hesitates, asking about Hime, but Mars assures him that she is safe. In the carriage, Sato finds Hime and thanks Mars for rescuing their soul and body from being crushed by the demon. Sato asks Alabaster why he couldn't defeat the Night Demon, and Alabaster reveals that Sato is weak and completely useless, and needs the power of the 4 other rings to reach his full potential. Realizing this means marrying 4 more princesses. Sato is stunned. Later that night, they reached an inn and lodge. Alabaster decides to explain the legend of the Ring King to Sato. Long ago, the world was on the verge of succumbing to the dark powers of the Abyss. The Ring King forged 5 rings imbued with magic, the rings of light, fire, water, earth, and wind. With these rings, he defeated the Abyss King. Afterward, the 5 princesses he married passed the rings through their generations within the 5 nations. With the return of the Abyss King, the Ring King must obtain the 5 rings and use their power to seal the abyss. Sometime later, Mars tells Sato he's relieved Hime chose him to be Ring King, not wanting such a vast responsibility himself. Sato steps out looking for Hime and finds her crying after she stormed out of the room. She saw the injuries on Sato's back and feels guilty for bringing him into her problems. He reassures her, confessing his love and saying he's in her world because he wants to be with her. The following day, Alabaster informs them that they are heading to an elven village called the Ramka Kingdom, surrounded by the Tempest Wall of Storms to find the Ring of Wind. On their way, they are attacked by a ferocious giant bear. Sato thinks it's an Abyss King monster, but Alabaster tells him it's just a forest beast. Sato tries to get friendly with it, prompting Hime to wonder if this is the alpha male she really chose to be Ring King. At that instant, the ferocious bear nearly bites his useless head off. As it chases them, they jump and cross the Tempest Wall and hide in a cave. They are then approached by 2 elves who take them to the palace. On getting to the palace, they meet the elven princess who is hiding behind the throne. She asks Sato and Hime if they are developing plot, surprising Hime, who wonders if this creep is intoxicated. They tell her they seek the Ring of Wind. Upon hearing that, she flees. Before long, a lanky elf with enormous ears approaches them. He introduces himself as Jade, the older brother of the awkward elf princess Nephritis. Instantly, with a tip of the finger, he summons guards to arrest Sato and imprison him while the rest are given the 5-star treatment. Later on, Sato demands to know why he's imprisoned, and Jade explains to him that Nephritis is still timid and isn't accustomed to strangers, and even though she is 54 years of age, she is still a child at heart. Upon hearing this, Sato got discouraged because he's not into cougars. However, Jade tells him he would be locked up in the cell for 80 years, leaving Sato in shock, who thought by then his teeth would have fallen out. Jade's advisor questions his decision to imprison the Ring King, but Jade, confident in their Tempest Wall, tells him he doesn't give a damn about the Ring King. 3 days later, while Sato contemplates his life decisions in jail, an elf named Peridot interrupts his thoughts. She asks him what he stands to gain by gathering the 5 rings, absolute power, or just clapping beautiful princesses' cheeks. Sato replies he just wants to live happily with Hime. She thinks it's a stupid reason for having such a great power. Just then, with a flick of her wrist and a touch of the wall, she opened a passageway inside the prison and asked them to follow her. They walked for a bit and arrived at a wind temple, where the Ring of Wind is kept. Sato wonders why the ring is on the fingers of the statue instead of Nephritis. Just then, a nutcase creeps in while Sato and Peridot go in hiding. The creeping nutcase results to be Nephritis. She talked to the statue of her parents, telling them that the Ring King was about to take her and the ring, but she would keep their promise, stating that she would not go outside the Ramka kingdom. Peridot reveals that the statues use the ring's power to create the Tempest Wall protecting the village. Sato, shocked, makes a noise, alerting Nephritis. Trying to cover it up, he makes bird noises, but Peridot tells him he's an idiot, and there's no birds in the Wind Temple. Nephritis orders the intruders to reveal themselves, and Sato steps out. Upon seeing him, Nephritis faints. Peridot instructs Sato to carry Nephritis, and they head to her manor. Nephritis wakes and, seeing Sato, vomits in fear. Jade, realizing that Sato has escaped, grows furious, but Peridot lies, saying that Nephritis and Sato had eloped, causing Jade to cry a river like Justin Timberlake. Determined, Jade decides not to give Nephritis the ring and orders a search of Peridot's manor. At the manor, Sato and Nephritis were hitting it firmly, with Nephritis asking about his world and he describes it as peaceful. She, though scared of the outside, dreams of visiting it. Excited, she begs Sato to take her there. Just then, Jade arrives, calling for Nephritis. She walks away with him, but not before declaring the Ring King is not who Jade thinks he is. Jade is about to give Sato 1,000 years of pain, but Peridot intervenes, taking responsibility for him. Later that day, Peridot narrates the village's history to Sato and Hime. She explains how Nephritis' aunt, the actual ring bearer, fell in love with an outsider, a human. The elves, fearing the outsider would take the ring, were delighted after not seeing him anymore, causing Nephritis' aunts to curse the village and exile herself. Her parents inherited the ring, and scared of the curse, they created the Tempest Wall surrounding the kingdom, making Nephritis promise to never leave. The following day, Alabaster urges Sato and his companions to depart from the Ramka kingdom since the elusive Ring of Wind remains out of reach. Jade, witnessing their departure with much delight, receives dire news. Monsters have breached the supposedly impenetrable Tempest Wall and are advancing toward the palace. Sato and his group hastily turn back, realizing the impending danger to the city they just left behind. They witness winged abyss monsters soaring toward the castle and resolve to defend the city and safeguard the precious Ring of Wind. At the Wind Temple, the fearsome Abyss Knight appears with the intent of claiming the ring, and Jade confronts the demon with determination, but his bravery proves insufficient against the Abyss Knight's formidable power. As Jade is flung against the temple wall by a gust summoned by the demon, Alabaster intervenes just in time to save him. Sato launched an attack and charged at the demon, but was sent flying by a gust of wind from the demon's finger. Sato tries charging again at the monster, but this time, he is slashed by the monster's sharp wind and he falls to the ground wounded. Hime realizes that if she doesn't act fast, she'll have to visit Sato in the afterlife. She dashes outside the Wind Temple amidst tears and begs Nephritis to marry Sato so he can harness the power of both rings and defeat this monster that is proving quite difficult. Just as she thought Nephritis won't budge, Nephritis agreed to marry Sato. Meanwhile, Peridot, knowing Hime's ideas, assists Sato in stalling the advancing monsters until his wife arrives. Hime and Nephritis, wielding newfound resolve and the power of the rings, both wield Dor's hammer as they both smash the statue of Nephritis' parents. And to the dismay of Jade, the shattering of the statue causes the Ring of Wind to fall into their hands. At the same time, the Tempest Wall protecting the village dissipated. Nephritis picks up the rings, dashes and leaps towards Sato and kisses him, placing the rings on their fingers. Bright and intense blinding light emanates from them, which makes all the winged abyss monsters vanish, leaving behind the Abyss Knight, who falls to the ground at the sight of light. Emboldened by their victory, Alabaster signals Sato to confront the Abyss Knight directly. Sato charges at the Abyss Knight while the demon summons a whirlwind, but Sato restrains it with the power of the rings and then impales the face of the Abyss Knight, cracking the core, and Sato faints instantly. The following morning, Sato awakens to the concerned gazes of his two baddies, Hime and Nephritis, relieved to find him safe. As they gather their bearings, Peridot arrives with unexpected news. Nephritis' long-forgotten aunt, Princess Smaragdi, the true bearer of the Ring of Wind, emerges from the shadows. Peridot reveals that she was the face behind the Abyss Knight he defeated, leaving him in shock. She happened to be influenced by a dark ring, which the Abyss King manipulated her into obtaining. Sato asks if they really don't know much about the Abyss King, to which Peridot replies that all they know is that it was said that after the legendary battle with the Ring King, he lost his body and his soul was sealed away in Vanna. Alabaster adds that even though no one has seen him, his minions attack people and his black rings give birth to Abyss Knights. Nephritis proposes to visit a spring of healing to restore Sato's strength. Meanwhile, Princess Smaragdi seeks out Alabaster because he's a sage, and asks him if he knows the whereabouts of her loved one. Alabaster presents her with a gift, a token she had given to the traveler many years ago. Emotionally moved, Alabaster shares that he has known this traveler for a long time, and he always wished for her happiness, emphasizing that the traveler would never want her to be ostracized by her people. The next day, as Sato and his companions prepare to leave Ramka, they hear Nefrita scream in the distance. She approaches them and insists on accompanying her husband on his journey, eager to see the world. Meanwhile, Peridot had a conversation with Princess Smaragdi. During their discussion, Smaragdi overhears a conversation between two random dudes, mentioning Sage Alabaster leaving the city with the Ring King. Realization dawns on her. Alabaster, her lost love, is still alive and has been by her side all along. Which land will Sato head next to seek a princess? Let us know if you want part 2 by commenting princess in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. See you guys in the next video.